with news from across the Federation, spanning the region and covering the globe. This is the KyssFM SKN News Now Evening Edition, your one true source for news. And now your presenter.
Good evening, I'm Kenny James. Today is Tuesday, 6th March 2018. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines tonight, nationally, NEMA says the tsunami warning being circulated is fake. Internationally, North Korea open to freezing nuclear weapons tests amid talks. And in sports, David Warner and Quinton de Kock charged by ICC after South Africa versus Australia test. We have the details of these stories, the weather and Carib update, all ahead in the SKN News Now Evening Edition. Nationally, the National Emergency Management Agency says there is no need to panic following the circulation of a fake tsunami warning on social media. According to NEMA, the false tsunami warning being spread is a copy of an actual message originally disseminated on September 5, 2012, after an earthquake impacted Costa Rica with the epicenter in Nicoya Peninsula. NEMA continued that they consider the timing and disseminating of the message to be malicious in intent and are urging persons to discontinue sharing it. It appears as though the fake tsunami warning was meant to create alarm in light of the rough seas and sea swells that the Federation has been experiencing since Sunday night. Photos of the Charlestown jetty covered over by unusually high sea swells and rushing waters covering the bypass have been circulating since the weekend. NEMA says, however, that the rough seas and high surf alerts issued by the Met Services Department at RLB International Airport currently being experienced on St. Kitts and Nevis and other Leeward Islands are not related to tsunami activity in any way. It's been a busy week for the forensic pathologist charged with the job of determining the causes of death of last week's 3 homicide victims. On Monday, Dr. Valerie Alexandrov conducted autopsies on the bodies of the Finch sisters of Keys and on Mickelton Tyson of Phillips Village. At the end of his examination, he determined that 19-year-old Naomi Finch's death was due to homicidal manual strangulation, while her sister, 20-year-old Jamelia Finch, died from multiple homicidal chop wounds with partial decapitation. A 34-year-old man, Arvis Pogson of Keys Village, was charged on 3rd March for the homicide of the sisters 2 days earlier. In the case of 25-year-old Mickelton Tyson, Dr. Alexandrov concluded that his death was the result of a single fatal gunshot wound to the chest. Police are still appealing to the public for leads which could help them catch Tyson's murderer. Tyson's motionless body was discovered on the roadside in Phillips Village at about 6:30 a.m. on the 2nd of March. Nearby residents said they heard gunshots fired sometime after midnight that morning, but did not venture out given the early hour. Tyson is believed to have been walking home after completing his shift as a security guard at a nearby public school. Minister of Health in St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Eugene Hamilton, is being lambasted for allegedly playing politics within the ministry rather than looking out for the genuine interests of the wider population. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party politician Dr. Terence Drew is leading the charge against Honorable Hamilton, stating that the minister has disrespected persons in the very constituency that elected him. Dr. Drew's criticisms are in connection with the state-of-the-art health center that is currently being built in the village of Tabernacle. A disappointed Drew has said this should never be and asserts that priority being given to the nation's healthcare needs are skewed as Keon is several times larger and more densely populated than Tabernacle. Keon, that's where the health center should have been, Drew said.
Instead of Eugene Hamilton arguing that Keyon should have the larger healthcare center because of the number of persons they serve and the services they give, the Tabernacle has the health center has gone to Tabernacle. Why? It is pure a political decision and not based on health policy. Because if it was based on health policy, that larger healthcare center would have gone into a population where the population is much larger. Look at that small health center in Keyon with an expanding population, and go to Tabernacle with a much smaller population, have a large health center. It is not going to be utilized to the full extent. Labor will resolve that situation.
The area in Frigate Bay known as the Strip is currently infested by a swarm of spiders, which the Department of Agriculture admits it is presently unable to identify. The department visited the site last week following several complaints from bar owners, only to be surprised by large webs which have completely overtaken the trees in the area. Bar owners have also told us that they are also forced to check their businesses daily for the spiders, as they are capable of spinning thick webs in a relatively short space of time. Speaking exclusively with SKN News Now, Director of Agriculture Mr. Melvin James, who has visited the site personally, said he witnessed profound and profuse webbing. This, he says, is very unusual and is neither something he nor the department has ever seen.
I noticed some profound and profuse webbing, meaning that yes, there were spiders, and whatever the spiders were, they had made a lot of webs. I mean, you could see like they were sort of like all over the branches. Yes. You know, unusual. Yes. I hadn't seen anything like that before. Yes. So again, I quickly hasten that my area of expertise is with insects proper. Spiders, they're closely related, but they're not insects, right? So I don't propose to know a whole lot about spiders, but I have some ideas. And I haven't seen anything like that elsewhere. And so I have the conviction that it's relatively new to St. Kitts, you know? The operation really, I do not think the Department of Agriculture is well placed to be the ones to execute any management on these spiders. Over there, it's my understanding, is the property of the Frigate Bay Development Corporation. And I believe we're well placed to sort of maybe advise them as to how they should go about if they want to really effectively manage them. Should I be able to talk to them, I will try to share the benefits of my experience and my thoughts, and even make suggestions to them even if they're not 100% comfortable, but at least they need to check some kind of source. They need to do something about it.
Mr. James also told us at present the department is not in a place to manage the removal of the spiders.
The operation really, I do not think the Department of Agriculture is well placed to be the ones to execute any management on these spiders. Over there, it's my understanding, is the property of the Frigate Bay Development Corporation. And I believe we're well placed to sort of maybe advise them as to how they should go about if they want to really effectively manage them. Should I be able to talk to them, I will try to share the benefits of my experience and my thoughts, and even make suggestions to them even if they're not 100% comfortable, but at least they need to check some kind of source. They need to do something about it.
Trade stakeholders from the public and private sectors are currently participating in a 3-day seminar on the General Agreement on Trade in Services in St. Kitts and Nevis, with the aim of better understanding the importance of services sectors from an international trade perspective. Facilitators for the workshop are Martin Roy and Dale Honeck, councillors, both from the Trade in Services and Investment Division of the World Trade Organization. At the start of the forum, Mr. Roy explained that he and his colleague will attempt to convey to participants the importance of international trade in the services sector and examine how the contributions of trade in services can improve performance in different service sectors for growth and development. He also underscored the importance of participants understanding St. Kitts and Nevis trade policy with respect to services across the government ministries and sectors that have regulations and policies that are important and that serve to achieve different services' objective. At present, the services sector in St. Kitts and Nevis contributes just over 70% of gross domestic product. Participants for Day 1 were drawn from the Ministries of Health, Finance, Education, Tourism, Telecommunications, Culture and Sports, and the Departments of Labor, Statistics and Legal, and Port Services. Day 2 today will focus on participants from the private sector. The forum concludes on Wednesday, 7th March. Stay with us. SKN News Now continues in just a moment with today's top international developments. Internationally, the leaders of North and South Korea have agreed to hold a historic summit in April as hopes build for a breakthrough on the peninsula. It follows a high-level meeting between a South Korean delegation and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. They have agreed to install a hotline between the two leaders to de-escalate military tensions, and North Korea has said it would consider freezing its nuclear program under the right circumstances. Robert McBride reports.
The delegation arrived back in Seoul clearly delighted the mission had achieved all its objectives and more. Most importantly, an apparent commitment from North Korea to denuclearize under the right conditions.
North Korea made it clear that there will be no reason to possess nuclear capabilities if there's no military threat, and also North Korea's regime's security is guaranteed.
The two sides have agreed to a summit between President Moon Jae-in of South Korea and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at Panmunjom inside the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas, where a truce was signed to end the Korean War in 1953. And for the first time, a hotline will be set up between the two leaders to defuse any future crises. South Korea says the North has also agreed not to hold any provocative nuclear or ballistic missile tests while these talks are ongoing, and has shown its willingness to discuss denuclearization with the US. Washington has always insisted the North commits to giving up its nuclear arsenal as a precondition to talks, but it's far from clear this agreement gives that commitment. The agreement follows an extraordinary visit lasting little more than 24 hours with a banquet and smiles at the invitation of Kim Jong-un. North Korea's state-run media giving the visit extensive coverage. President Moon's government will hail this as a landmark achievement of his policy of engagement. Earlier Tuesday, he was attending a graduation ceremony at a military academy. He clearly believes in his mission of long-term peace through dialogue, but this was a reminder to his critics that South Korea should remain militarily strong if the initiative falters.
We must talk to North Korea in order to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. But at the same time, we must put our maximum efforts into establishing effective measures against North Korean nuclear and missile capabilities.
South Korea's envoys now travel to the United States to fill in their allies on the details of the agreement. That will be a far tougher sell.
Canada would view any tariffs on steel or aluminum as unacceptable and will take appropriate measures to defend workers and industries if needed, Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland said on Monday. The latest trade deal talks with her Mexican and U.S. counterparts have ended in Mexico City with little success. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has also told President Donald Trump tariffs will hinder renegotiation of the 1994 North American Free Trade Agreement. John Holman has more.
Even from 3,000 kilometers away in Washington, D.C., President Trump managed to upend the 7th round of NAFTA negotiations.
We are renegotiating NAFTA, as I said I would, and if we don't make a deal, I'll terminate NAFTA. That would be, I would imagine, one of the points that we'll negotiate. It will be tariffs on steel for Canada and for Mexico.
He'd already announced plans to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from around the world. But Canada and Mexico felt that as the US's partners in the NAFTA free trade bloc, they should be exempted. Canada was especially displeased.
Should restrictions be imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum products, Canada will take appropriate, responsive measures to defend our trade interests and our workers.
They've been decimated.
President Trump indicated he could be flexible if Mexico and Canada capitulate on other sticking points in the negotiations. They include an increase in auto parts made in the US, better Mexican labor standards to make the US workforce more competitive, and a clause ending NAFTA every 5 years. Common ground on those issues has been extremely hard to find. The US has indicated that time is running out. President Trump's announcement has made already tough and slow-moving negotiations even more difficult. And unless Canada and Mexico give the United States exactly what it wants, the future seems uncertain for NAFTA.
Still to come this evening, sport, the weather, and Carib update. In sports, Australia batsman David Warner and South Africa's Quinton de Kock have been charged by the International Cricket Council for an incident after the first test in Durban. Video footage appears to show Australian vice-captain Warner having to be restrained by teammates during an altercation with wicket-keeper de Kock. The two players have until Wednesday to respond to the charges. Warner was charged with a level 2 offence, de Kock with a level 1. A level 2 offence carries 3 or 4 demerit points, while a level 1 offence carries 1 or 2, meaning Warner could be banned for 1 test, while the heaviest penalty de Kock faces is a fine. Vice-Captain Warner received the full backing of his coach, Darren Lehmann, who said they were certainly supporting David. Australia won the first test by 118 runs. The second test starts on Friday at St. George's Park in Port Elizabeth. And now for a look at today's weather forecast. Across St. Kitts and Nevis tonight, we will enjoy fair skies with a very low chance for showers. The sea level pressure is 1015.3 millibars at 29.98 parts of an inch. Winds are north-northeast at 5 to 12 miles per hour, becoming variable or calm at times. Seas are very rough with swells 2.4 to 3.7 meters or 8 to 12 feet. Firm warnings remain in place for small craft operators and sea bathers against hazardous sea conditions. A warning remains in effect for beachgoers for large swells and high surfs, especially for the northern and eastern coastal waters of the islands, where the largest swells are expected. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:25 a.m. That ends tonight's edition of the SKN News Now Evening Edition. Now for a recap of our top stories. Nationally, NEMA says the tsunami warning being circulated is fake. Internationally, North Korea open to freezing nuclear weapons tests amid talks. And in sports, David Warner and Quinton de Kock charged by ICC after South Africa versus Australia test. Stay tuned, Carib Update is up next.